And you bang on time for Morning Prime. It is the 14th of August 2023. I trust that you have had a very restorative weekend and you're ready to face this good news and a good, of course, week that we have today. Did I just say good news? Right, it is good news for the devolution because beginning today, we'll be having the devolution conference, and this has been a beautiful thing as far as the promulgation of a constitution is concerned. And they take a milestone. They hack back into history, looking at the milestone that we've actually come up so far as checking into place devolution is concerned. The conference will be happening in Eldoret, and President William Ruto will be opening the conference today in Eldoret. We shall be keeping our eyes peeled there and, of course, keeping out our ears as well. But for now, we'll be focusing on the political, of course, developments of the day, hacking back to what was happening last week. And we have, of course, our guests as well who will be joining us this morning to chime in and share their contributions and views as far as the political scenario is concerned. Remember, Bomas of Kenya will be also the epicenter of the dialogues that will be happening today. And also, we shall be keeping our eyes there to just make sure that you're primed and appraised as far as information coming to hand from there will be delivered. So also, today, that will be a big agenda on the diary as far as news making is concerned. But for now, let's see what is fresh off the press today. But before we go there, the weather is up next. US hand in Ruto Raila talks is what is the splash today. And we have the sub-headline reading Politics. Delaware Senator Chris Coons, who has been involved in Kenya's political situation, met opposition leader Raila Odinga and is set to meet President Ruto today as the United States seeks lasting stability of its key regional ally. That is a story that you want to follow on page 4 of the Standard this morning. And also on the side but there, devolution conference. 10-year wait to hit revenue targets. At the onset of devolution, counties' financial sustainability was unideal. But 10 years later, counties will depend on national government to fund their budget, with none meeting on-source revenue targets. Now, some are hiking taxes despite tough economic times. It's all about money matters. The figures are broken down for you there on the front page of the Standard. We have 33.85 billion shillings. That is money generated by counties in 2014 to 2015. 50 billion shillings, 0.5 or 50.5 billion shillings. Amount counties targeted to raise in 2015-2016, but only got 35.02 billion shillings. We have 40.3 billion shillings, amount they collected in 2018-2019. In the 2019-2020 financial year, county governments generated 35.7 billion shillings, way below what they targeted, which represents 65.2% of the set annual targets of 54.9 billion shillings. 64.2 billion shillings. In 2021-2022, the collections decreased to 34.44 billion shillings, which was 64.2% of the annual target of the 53.66 billion shillings. This was a decrease compared to 35.77 billion shillings generated in the financial year 2019-2020. Also 28.77 billion shillings. That is a control of budget report shows the 9 months of 2022-2023, counties raised 28.77 billion shillings from their own source revenue, which was a decline compared to 27.09 billion shillings generated in a similar period the previous financial year. Not really necessarily a decline, but an inch upwards, so to speak, if you follow the figures of 28.77 billion shillings and 27.09 billion shillings, you can kiss my mouth. That is what is on the front page of the Standard this morning, doctors refix man's hand cut in domestic row. A team of doctors at Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital in Wasigishu have reimplanted a hand chopped off during a family fight in 11-hour operation. And you can follow this story on page 16 of the Standard today. 40 students get Finland visas as education fund scandal rages on. That story continues on page 5. They met with the leadership, of course, the students, the parents, and that particular meeting was very emotive, with the students really decrying this development that money has gone down the tubes that was meant to benefit them as far as scholarship is concerned. Kenyans in Mandera stranded as travel costs rise. You can follow the story on page 3 of the Standard today. And all this is because of the rising spate of terror and the attacks. We've seen that with the IEDs exploding in the northern part of the country, and this is why also traveling costs is risen exponentially. Health and Science magazine comes in handy for you every Monday, and you can get all the whys as far as rejection is concerned, rising above rejection, and that story is tucked away inside the Health and Science report. This is Caxton Osozi, who was born with albinism, and is speaking about the risk and challenges of living with the genetic condition and the steps needed to fight ignorance and myth. You can follow this story on page 4 of the Standard today. State admits not knowing sugar source. 19 years down the line, we have adulterated sugar, contaminated sugar that is still in the Kenya Ports Authority's storage there. And that's a question that everyone is asking, especially the members of parliament. Why we have contaminated sugar in the country, it has not been disposed of. School games rekindle hope in neglected sector. You have the story on page 30 and 31 of the Standard this morning. This is how it looks. Make sure you grab a copy of the bold paper. That jump to page 2. This is how it looks. Make sure you grab a copy of the bold paper this morning. Right, let's see what is on the front page of the Daily Nation. Business of war. 12 years of costly battle. After more than a decade of Kenya Defense Forces involvement in Somalia, a total of 52 billion shillings has been spent on procuring weapons, combat equipment, and equipping troops. But has the military intervention achieved its goals? That is the abiding question. And this is well laid out for you on page 2, 3, 4, and 5 of the Daily Nation this morning. 4,660. That is the Kenya formally deployed some 4,660 troops to Somalia in October 2011 following incessant attacks and abductions of civilians by Al-Shabaab militants on its territory. 1,000 recently deployed troops to the mineral-rich Democratic Republic of Congo at a cost of 4.45 billion shillings in the first 6 months. And also that development is that Kenya also is mulling over now pulling back the troops from DR Congo. And we know also the US Secretary, that is the United Nations Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, has also commented on this, saying that also the UN is in the last phase of pulling out the troops in DR Congo. New COVID strain, a variant of interest. Last week, World Health Organization announced that they are warning the world of a new COVID-19 variant, which is they're labeling it a variant of interest. The World Health Organization has classified a new coronavirus strain as a variant of interest, but reiterated that it poses an insignificant risk to the public health. You have the story on page 8 of the Daily Nation this morning. Also, senators to push for compensation in US. A delegation of Kenyan senators is set to travel to Washington, D.C. next month to meet their counterparts in the US Congress in a push for compensation for the victims of the 1998 bomb blast in Nairobi. This is how it looks. Let's see what we have on top there on the teaser. Kindiki warns Raila on protest. Interior says Kithure Kindiki has warned Azimio la Umoja leader Raila Odinga against threatening to resume protest if the planned talks of Bomas of Kenya do not go their way. He urged the opposition to allow dialogue to continue peacefully and accept the outcome. Also, NSSF Act, new law unlocks 48 billion shillings for funds. This is a story that you want to follow on page 7 of the Daily Nation this morning. The Star is up next. Dialogue. Raila Ruto meets US Senator. That is a splash today. The flag reads stubborn. Both sides are yet to agree on agenda, even as Mio Miles' return of demos. In August last year, Coons engaged in shuttle diplomacy between the duo to unlock their stalemate over the outcome of the polls. You have a story on page 4 and 5 of the Star this morning. Just to read an excerpt, it says that an American politician believed to have played a key role in 2018 handshake is again on a mission to end hostilities between Kenya Kwanza and Azimio. So he met with Raila. He's bound to be meeting President Ruto today. And of course, we shall be following this story for you in the newsroom today. Still on the Star, we have specialized surgery, and this is the story of the man who had his hand cut, and now it has been reattached. You can follow the story on page 3 of the Star this morning. Still on the Star as well, senators probe that state failure to pay statutory benefits of civil servants. State failure to pay statutory benefits of civil servants. And also state to grow NSSF savings, stop external borrowing. This is what the president is saying. You can follow the story inside the Star this morning. Headliners threat to talks. That is a splash on the front page of the People Daily. All eyes on Bomas. Mudavadi fires salvo with claim there is no place for mediation. Kindiki hits out at Raila for saying new forms of protest still an option, yet Kenyans expect teams led by Kalonzo and Ishungwa and mediated by Obasanjo to come up with a roadmap that will resolve the political rift or rifts. You can follow the story on page 4 and 5 of the People Daily this morning. Let there be music. And we can see learners from PCA Kangema presenting a choral verse during Day 3 of 95th Kenya Music Festivals hosted at Dedan Kimathi University of Technology in Nyeri County yesterday. The class of 1038H is a special composition of an English verse on theme of countering violent extremism and is a category for primary school. The theme for the ongoing national festival is nurturing talent for innovation and national development. Also, danger lurks in snake bites and hospitals with no drugs. You can follow the story inside the People Daily this morning. And also, state is clarifying on varsity fees. Of course, there has been trepidation and worries regarding it. And now the answer, you can follow it on page 13 of the People Daily this morning. That is how it looks. We have Taifa Leo. Raila alivyochezwa. Mdadisi afichua waliofaa kutoa vifaa ujasusi walilegea kimakusudi kwa kutojua jinsi ya kufanyia kampeni baba. You can read the story inside Taifa Leo this morning. Mtata sasa atishia miradi ya serikali. That is another story that you want to follow inside the Taifa Leo. Wabunge sasa waingilia swala la sukari ya sumu. Wataka kujua kwa nini container za sukari bado hazijaharibiwa. That is the story that you can follow on page 5 of the Taifa Leo. Of course, I'll pose that question also to our panelists this morning. 19 years down the line, we still have contaminated sugar that the ports is still holding the containers. Weta hapa kufaulisha mazungumzo ya Azimio and Man United kukatana na Wolves leo. You can follow the story inside Taifa Leo. Let's buckle down to some business where Kenya-Tanzania trade war cuts imports 30%. DA imposed new guidelines on trade in grains. Tanzania says measures to help fight exploitation. Kenya's imports from neighboring Tanzania has slumped at the sharpest pace in 7 years in a period renewed trade tiffs. So Nairobi bypassed Dar es Salaam to buy more from as far as Egypt. You can follow the story inside the Business Daily this morning. And Kerry goes after another betting firm over 5 billion shillings tax bill. The taxman has gone after another betting firm over a 5 billion shillings tax bill, intensifying the spotlight on the multi-billion shilling industry, which has come under increased scrutiny from the authorities for allegedly declaring incorrect taxes. That story tucked away on page 2 of the Business Daily this morning. Eyes on fuel price control as new formula to be unveiled. Kenya is expected to reveal the change on the current fuel pricing formula before the end of this month, in changes that could have implications on what consumers pay. And this story, you could follow it on page 4. Remember, today is 14th. Around this time or tomorrow, we have always EPRA reviewing their fuel prices. So we'll see if that is bound to tick up or down. And that story continues on page 4 of the Business Daily. Advisors earn 733 million shillings in Diageo EABL deal. British multinational Diageo has disclosed that it spent 4 million sterling pounds on transaction fees when buying an additional 14.97% stake in EABL. Early this year, learning local firms that advise on the deal a healthy payday. You could follow the story inside the Business Daily. Let's cross borders now. We go to Daily Monitor, and this is aptly also on the front page of the Daily Monitor. Borders and borders lose bikes over loans. That is a dilemma there. Many of the border riders are losing their bikes over loans, defaulting. You can follow the story on page 4 of the Daily Monitor this morning. And Museveni Ruto discuss trade security. That is all about bilateral, and you can see that telling picture there where the President Museveni and his counterpart William Ruto are holding court on bilateral issues. That is on the front page of the Daily Monitor. And when should a mother not breastfeed? That is the probing question, and that you can have it on Healthy Living inside the Daily Monitor. If you're waking up in Uganda, also we have Bishop telling MPs to stop witchcraft as Speaker Among unveils new Bukedea, that is Bukedea House. Bishop tells MPs to stop witchcraft as Speaker Among unveils new Bukedea House. That story continues inside the Daily Monitor if you're waking up in Uganda. The Citizen in Tanzania, 15 banks vanish in 5 years. At least 15 banks have vanished in the last 5 years as consolidation of financial institutions gained momentum, with a number of lenders dropping from 59 in 2017 to 44 in 2022 following the acquisition of financial institutions that were struggling to survive. You can follow the story inside the Citizen if you're waking up in Tanzania this morning. CRBD Marathon raises 1 billion shillings. And mining set for fresh boom amid increased investments. That is the story you want to follow. Kilindi farmers up in arms over Lumbesa trickery. All that happening in Tanzania. And also you can follow the story on how Rose is coping after a savage hyena attack. All that tucked away inside the fresh publication of the Citizen today, Monday the 14th. In Rwanda, now there are 8 key unanswered questions on Kabuga's impending release. Remember, ICC had declared that this particular case will not be forthcoming or will not really continue because of the state of Kabuga, who is suffering dementia. Kabuga faces $50 million lawsuit in Rwanda, where survivors are seeking compensation. And that is the story that you want to follow on page 4. And we had also the spokesperson of the Rwandan government saying that they will respect the court's decision. And that story, you can follow it on page 4 of the New Times. Kagame, Maasai Open Giants of Africa Festival. And you can see here President Paul Kagame and Masai Ujiri, the co-founder of Giants of Africa. And General Manager of the NBA's Toronto Raptors during the official opening of the 2023 Giants of Africa Festival in Kigali on Sunday. The week-long festival has brought together 250 youth from 16 African countries to take part in sports, entertainment, and cultural activities, among others. You can follow the story inside the New Times today. First Lady calls on men to have an equal share in parenting, and why 35 Rwandan farms can import sugar duty-free this year. You have the story on page 3 of the New Times today. China Daily is up, and this is what is on the front page of the China Daily this morning. Clear criteria for expanding BRICS urged. That is what we have on the front page of the China Daily this morning. Experts say membership offers, let me try and expand that so we can read together. Experts say membership offers chance to strengthen the voice of developing nations. And remember, the BRICS meeting is happening soon. So it says, with BRICS expected to consider the membership of additional countries at the upcoming 5th BRICS summit, experts say the grouping should come with clear modes for expansion and discuss its commitment to development amid geopolitical uncertainties. Countries including Egypt, Algeria, Nigeria, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Argentina, Mexico, the United Arab Emirates, and Iran have applied for membership in BRICS, whose current members are the major or the emerging economies of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. It's an important event, and we know that it will be taking place in Joburg on August 22nd to 24th, and this is the first physical event of the group after the COVID pandemics. One of the main topics of this summit is expansion of its membership, as I've just read, and I've read for you also some of the highlights of the countries there. And of course, the expansion will strengthen the voice of the developing countries, as well as bring on table new ideas on development and climate change. And this is in addition to pushing for agenda on global shift in terms of how countries relate in the post-1945, where the US world order, particularly looking at issues like the strength of dollar and the dollar hegemony, the dollarization has been a big topic. You can read the rest of the details inside the China Daily. Make sure you grab a copy of it. Also, Beijing slams US stopover by Taiwan official is another story that you can follow inside the Citizen. Africa ready to seize new opportunities, or to seize, I should say, new opportunities is another story that you want to follow inside the Daily Monitor. Not the Daily Monitor, but the China Daily this morning. All right, we have the Time magazine, artificial intelligence by the people, for the people. You can read all about it inside the Time magazine. And we can see workers for Karya, a non-profit artificial intelligence data company in Karnataka, India. It's a mouthful for me. This is how it looks. We have also the new copy, our publication of the Newsweek, Ukraine on the ballot. How the 2024 election could determine who wins the war and America's role in the world. That is the story there inside the Newsweek. Also, the military's big bet on Microsoft is another story tucked away inside the new copy of the Newsweek. On personal finance, Kiplinga is up. Cash on the AI. Use our stock and fan picks to benefit from the boom in artificial intelligence. That story tucked away on page 18 of the Kiplinga this morning. And also, lastly, we have the Forbes Africa. This is the latest edition, and it's featuring Idris Elba, actor, entrepreneur, musician, philanthropist. He says, I want African cinema to be global. This is a new direction. The crossover artist playing a leading role building and investing in Africa's creative economy, plus venture capital in entertainment. That is the story that you want to follow. We have the editorial cartoons today. Inside the Star, happy birthday, Bert, alama ya dukuduku. And you can see counties are tightening their belts there. And who is tightening the belt? This is President William Ruto, who is tightening this particular belt. It's over 10 years now of devolution. And you can see the birthday, just to attend a reminder if you're joining us this morning. That particular conference starts today. It will be presided over and officially opened by the president in Eldoret. All the senators, all the state department leaders as well, and agencies, government departments and agencies will be there. And of course, we shall be turning our eyes there in Eldoret this morning. Happy birthday, Bert. Question marks, ellipses. That is what we also shall be looking at down the line. Hacking back into a bit of history since the shaking into place of the new constitution and the dispensation of devolution. And politics and development don't mix. This is what Wanjiku says. And Stano has captured this. He says campaign promises 2022. We can see 2027 now getting a tick. 2022, is it done and dusted? I leave it for you to decide for this. Allow me to introduce our panelists this morning. I'm holding court with Aden Kanan, Member of Parliament Eldas. Also, we have Member of Parliament from Kitui Central. This is Dr. Makali Mulu. And also we have Danson Mungatana joining us this morning. Good morning, gentlemen.
Hey, good morning.
Fantastic, and thank you so much for joining us. I hope that you had a lovely restorative weekend and you're fresh to face the new week that we do have. A lot that we look forward to, of course, be following this week, and beginning with the devolution conference happening in Eldoret, and also the Bombers of Kenya as well talks commencing today. Last week we saw just the preliminary actions or maybe plannings being shaken into place. So this week we put our eyes and follow on that as well. But let's just hear from you, Makali Mulu, first of all, from Kitui Central and Eldas. We want to know what is happening in Eldas, and you can tell us, yes, what are your highlights of the week or last week and moving forward.
Thank you, Bob. The week was good. Although I don't think whether it was a resting week. It was a working week.
It was a working week.
Yeah. A lot of activities.
Yeah. We missed you last Monday. You were out of the country.
Yeah, last Monday I was in Dar es Salaam attending a regional meeting, Commonwealth of Parliamentary Association meeting. Then when I came back, I dashed to Mombasa for a session with the Treasury. And then on Saturday I traveled to Kitui, attended several Arambis for our churches, local churches. And then came back last night. You remember when you called me, I told you I was in Kitui. I was actually in Arambi.
Yes.
But we thank God, at least Kitui is fine. A bit of baridi. This time I'm surprised that we are in August and it's a bit cold. So Kitui is also cold, although now the weather is changing. It's starting to become a bit warmer. But all said, looking forward to a very busy week, as you say. You know, today we have the talks starting in Bomas. I understand the technical teams over the weekend burned their midnight oil to come up with proposals on what will be discussed. And here they are also trying to come up with a motion which will be tabled in Parliament so that they entrench the whole process in law. I think some people are scared that lawyers might go to court to derail the process. So we wish them well, as we've said many times. I think we have all agreed as a country it's time to talk for the benefit of our country. We've seen the senator from America coming also in town, Chris Coons, so that he meets our leaders, and as a way of also encouraging them to take the talks very seriously. My appeal is that this time we don't want to see the talks abort again like it did with you remember the other committee, the earlier committee, which was chaired by my friend Morogara and Dr. Otenda Malo. And you know, it just died a natural. You know, those ones fizzled out. You see the way that something starts and it just dies without nobody knowing what is happening. We hope now the Chungwa-led and my party leader Kalonzo Musyoka-led parties will be able now to talks. Will be able to start on the right footing.
Thank you.
So that as a country, we cool the temperatures. You know, Dibala, I've said many times. As an economist, I get very worried anytime I see political differences because they have serious negative economic impacts in the long run. So if we can avoid them, the better for the country and everybody in this country. Otherwise, we are happy to be here.
All right, happy to hear. By the way, congratulations for being very active on the floor of the House in terms of contributions. I said I should wait for, you should have come with, we don't pop champagnes here early in the morning. But congratulations nonetheless for being actively involved in the agenda of the floor of the House according to Mzalendo as well.
Yes.
And I saw Elders, Member of Parliament, Kenan, that is it the Commonwealth that you're attending to, that you've been enlisted?
Yes.
The Commonwealth Association?
Yes.
You could tell us more, even Dr. Makali as well. Alongside
being an official.
Unofficial. So basically, you can now just maybe broaden our understanding on that, really, what it really entails.
Thank you so much. Morning. Kenya is a member of the Commonwealth, and we have Commonwealth CPF branch, Kenya. And after every election, we have to reconstitute. That's what the Commonwealth rules actually require, and that's exactly what the 13th Parliament actually has done. Glad that our friend here, who has been one of the key officials, is now a regional representative, and he's a co-opted member. And we thank him because he has been a very active member. And we hope once we start our new term, our new mandate officially, we will make the Commonwealth, as part of our tradition, a very active facility, not only for the members of Parliament, but also generally for both our economic gains and tourism, actually, for that matter.
Oh, okay. I wanted to even just, I think you were oriented my thoughts towards that, because I was to ask you, how is it exceedingly beneficial for this country to be a member of the Commonwealth? Is this just a level, or there are also incentives that really goes with that? Looking at the trade, looking at tourism as well.
Kenya is a member of the Commonwealth, and you understand the linkages, actually, the historical linkages between Kenya and the Commonwealth. The Commonwealth is headed by the Queen, and Kenya hasn't been a colony.
Is headed by the Queen, by the King now?
Now by the King.
Yeah, by the King.
By the King now. Sorry, we got used to the late Queen. So in every aspect, we have a lot of historical, economic, social, political linkage actually with the Commonwealth. And Kenya being a member, a very active member actually, of the Commonwealth Club. And our Parliament being a member of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, we have a lot to gain actually from being a very active member of the Commonwealth. So you understand the economic linkages, the social, political linkages. So we believe that coupled with the new role of parliamentary diplomacy. Parliamentary diplomacy is something actually the executive used to face, but right now is one of the most cherished branches actually of diplomacy actually in the world. That's why you see Goon here. Goon is not a member of the executive. Senator, he's not a member of the executive, but he's here as part of
parliamentary diplomacy.
And this is something that every regime right now is trying to accept as a reality, because parliamentarians actually play a critical role in not only in the management of their country's welfare, but also in the interface between their country and the other countries that they have some diplomatic engagement. So the Commonwealth will be a critical platform for us to engage not only other parliamentarians, but also to market Kenya globally in every parliamentary meetings.
Indeed. And of course, we have Senator Danson Mugatana, who is also the head of Pan-African Parliamentary Association. You can tell us more about this parliamentary diplomacy they've been advocating, especially when it comes to climate change as well, as a lead up to what will be the biggest Africa climate summit in September.
Yeah, but maybe Dibala should first of all start by saying the weekend was a weekend of blessings for us. We had a visit from the head of the Anglican Church.
That is in Tanariva.
In Tanariva. Archbishop Ole Sapit, and he came, bearing good news. He came to launch a very, very big borehole in an area where everybody else who was digging boreholes was getting bitter water. Somehow they got sweet water.
This is the bitter water of Mara.
So we are so happy and excited to host him. We don't always get such important people in our areas. And he came and explained to us the fact that the Anglican Church has both the pastoral, and then there's a different angle of the church, which is Anglican Development Services, which is ADS, that deals simply with community development. And you are excited to learn that some churches are not really a Shakahola type. And really it went on to cleanse the whole thing. There are people who just misuse the church, but there are those who are actually preaching the gospel and being involved in the community work. And I pray that all churches will continue in that direction. Coming back to the issue of Pan-African Parliament, yes, Kenya now is playing a very central role. And the president, we managed to convince him to come to open our other session, the last session we had in South Africa. And after that, he really got into the whole thing. And it happens that he's also chairing the climate change group of the presidents. So Kenya now is hosting a meeting in September to discuss that. So we are going to be very busy. Any person who comes to KICC now, they can't access KICC because KICC now is undergoing massive renovations. I think since many years, massive renovations in preparations for these talks. And I want to really thank President Ruto.
Yes.
You know, sometimes people wait for people to go before they say good things about them. Like the way we waited for Kibaki to go and then people say, oh, he was a great economist. No. I want us to thank President Ruto while he's still there in office. Some of the things he's doing on the African continent are really helping us in terms of bringing Kenya and positioning it as a central country in the diplomatic affairs of Africa, and even positioning us as people who will be taken seriously in terms of shaping the policy of Africa. So yeah, we are very glad to see this Africa meeting in Kenya. Now.
Fantastic. But of course, so just also to dwell deeper now on the issues that is at hand, especially with the dialogue. We know that Azimio la Umoja, one Kenyan leader, Raila Odinga, he held a closed-door secret meeting. If I may just run up the auto cue for me to follow up the story. And this is regarding also with the senator who is in the country. He held a closed-door secret meeting with the U.S. Senator for Delaware State. This is Christopher Coons, in a bid to catalyze the ongoing round 2 talks between the Kenya Kwanza administration and the opposition. Odinga said the meeting was to exchange notes with the senator, who is back in the country after 4 months. The senator is of course, expected on today to hold another engagement with President William Ruto to help speed up the talks that are expected to kick off this morning. KTN's political affairs reporter Emmanuel Tohasmo.
For the second time this year and third since William Ruto was declared president following last year's general polls, Delaware Senator Christopher Andrew Coons is back in the country, where he held a meeting with the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya leader Raila Odinga. Through his Twitter account, Odinga, who did not disclose the venue of the meeting, tweeted, quote, "It was a great pleasure as usual to meet and exchange notes with my friend Senator Chris Coons. An afternoon well spent," end of quote. Odinga was forced to cut short his trip in Nyanza to meet with Coons, who jetted into the country on Saturday. The meeting, according to Odinga's inner sanctum, is meant to add impetus to the fresh round of talks between the former Premier and President William Ruto and help close the ranks between the duo. Coons is also expected to meet President William Ruto Monday. It is now more than 4 months since Coons was last in the country at the height of the opposition demos that threatened to split the country. The senators' meeting with the former Premier and Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua led to the suspension of the demos to pave the way for talks. On August 19th, just 3 days after President William Ruto was declared the winner of the hotly contested general election, the senator met retired President Uhuru Kenyatta, then President-elect William Ruto, and the opposition leader Raila Odinga.
I was encouraged to hear from the Deputy President a commitment to respect the process and to continue to call for reconciliation.
Coons, who has served as the senator for Delaware since 2010, is U.S. President Joe Biden's close ally and sits in the powerful Foreign Relations Committee. Coons now joins a list of other high-profile individuals who have jetted into the country recently to try and mediate the country's polarized situation following the anti-government protests. Former Nigerian President Olusegun Obasanjo and Tanzania President Samia Suluhu Hassan are just some of the dignitaries who have been in the country to attempt a peaceful mediation process. Kenya and the U.S. have a shared history that spans over 60 years. The U.S. has specific interest in Kenya since it is seen as the gateway to the Horn of Africa and a key player in peace and security in the region. Kenya is among a few countries with U.S. military bases in Africa, with a cooperative security location, Manda Bay in Lamu. Manda Bay is home to the naval base Manda Bay, Camp Simba, the US base within a base where most US forces are housed and work, are nearby Magagoni airfield. This comes as the push and pull on the talks continue. Emmanuel To, KTN News, Nairobi.
Meanwhile, CS Interior and National Administration, CS, that is Kithure Kindiki, has sent a warning to political class and those involved in dialogue between Kenya Kwanza and Azimio la Umoja coalition that they must commit to peace, no matter the outcome of the dialogue. The CS said that Kenya has for the longest time been referred to as a peaceful nation and that police and other security agencies will not allow any disruption of peace like it was witnessed during the anti-government demos. The CS was speaking on Sunday in Nyeri town during a church service.
So nataka niwahakikishie wananchi wote wa Jamhuri ya Kenya, never again will anybody threaten the peace, stability and tranquility of our country using any reason whatsoever. Mmesikia sasa wanasiasa wameenda kuongea. Sisi kama walinda usalama hatuna shida, hiyo ni mambo ya demokrasia. Watu ya upinzani na watu ya serikali wakitaka kuongea mambo ya siasa ni sawa. On one condition. Hiyo mazungumzo isipofaulu, kusiwe mtu atatishia watu tena ati kwa sababu yale mazungumzo hatujazikizana ati sasa tunarudi kuumiza raia. So the people of Nyeri, the people of Kenya, the country is safe. Tuko na changamoto lakini nchi yetu iko salama. Na haitawezekana tena mtu yeyote ati kuterrorize wananchi, instilling fear and terror on innocent people because they want to achieve political objectives.
President William Ruto has announced that his government intends to borrow from within and cut on external borrowing. Speaking when he attended a church service at the Faith Evangelism Ministry in Karen, Nairobi, Ruto said the government will be borrowing money from the savings by Kenyans at the National Social Security Fund, that is NSSF. This is after the government increased the NSSF deductions from the initial 400 shillings to a graduated amount of 12%, which is 6%, or which 6% will be deducted from the employee, and a similar amount to be contributed by employer. Jeff Kiru has more.
As pressure mounts on President William Ruto over the rising cost of living, the head of state is banking on, among other aspects, cutting external borrowing and instead utilizing Kenyans' savings to improve the economy.
We were not in good space in terms of building our savings. In fact, they told me, which is true, our savings as a percentage of GDP is below 10%. Savings in other jurisdictions is 25, 30, 40. In fact, in China, it is 55% of GDP. So, they told me we have to change this because part of the challenge we have of borrowing is because we do not have savings. Therefore, we go to borrow from others.
After assuming office, President Ruto pushed to increase deductions towards the National Social Security Fund, NSSF, where employees contribute 6% of pensionable salary and the employer contribute a similar percentage. The amount that Ruto says the government will access in his efforts to cut on external borrowing.
The money we saved in NSSF, and Raymond would know, is about 350 billion shillings in the last 60 years. But because of the new formula that we have agreed and we have begun implementing the last 4 months, we are going to double that money, the 350 billion. We are going to double that money in 4 short years. And in a very short while, maybe 10, 15 years, we would not need to borrow from elsewhere. We can borrow our own money as Kenyans.
According to President Ruto, the government, through the affordable housing project, hopes to address the unemployment problems amidst the high cost of living.
It wasn't so much about the houses. It was so much about the jobs for the young people of Kenya. We have never had a comprehensive program, deliberate, intentional, to create opportunities for the young people of Kenya to have a job, to have an income. I'm very happy that this time round, we not only have a plan, we have clear interventions, we have money to do it, and we have a clear plan.
Jeff Kiroi, KTNU.
All right, those stories will, of course, set a tone for our conversation here on Morning Prime. You're watching Standpoint. But before also we buckle down, let's just hack back into history and see what really happened. Of course, when it was matters of politics with Kibaki and now Kenya as well. And the museum is up next.
Wananchi watukufu, serikali mpya ya Rais Kibaki itahitaji kazi na talent ya kila Mkenya. Ninyi wote, kila mmoja atachangia kurejesha nchi hii kwa nchi ambayo ilikuwa nchi tajiri, nchi inayoheshimiwa duniani na nchi ambayo wananchi walikuwa wakipendana. Each one of you will now be Mwai Kibaki's ambassador, kuomba kura kwa kila mwananchi. Na hii itakuwa kura ya kihistoria. Tungependa kusihi kila mtu ambaye ameshika kura tarehe 27 Disemba apige hiyo kura. Akiwa mgonjwa, bora asiwe mahututi sana, tumuweke kwa wheelbarrow na tumupeleke apige kura.
Tutakuwa na uongozi mpya, tutakuwa na kiongozi ambaye atajali mahitaji ya wananchi wa Kenya, and let Moi go home now.
Tukasema na sasa ndio itakuwa ni jahazi yetu ambaye tunavuka naye kutoka ngambo hii kuelekea Canaan. Si sawa sawa? Alafu siku ile mimi niliuliza nyinyi pale kule Uhuru Park, ati hii mzee Kibaki si ametosha? Na mkasemaje? Nyachaya akasema tio Raila alifanya makosa. Mimi nilisema, niliuliza wananchi na wananchi walisema Kibaki ametosha. Ametosha? Ametosha? Ulafi wa siasa haiwezi kupeleka mtu mahali. Wakati inafika ambaye kama wewe ni mwanasiasa mpaka waangalie kwenye ukuta na usome maneno ambayo iko kwenye ukuta. Lakini ndugu yetu hakusoma hiyo. Lakini bado tunaomba Mungu wataona mwangaza na watarudi kwetu.
Well, in the heat of the campaigns there, of course, when we had NAK Kenya campaigning for Kibaki, a lot of things were happening on the podium there, unbeknownst to some of the leaders, especially as far as Nyachai is concerned, and Kibaki Tosha pronouncement. Let's hear from Makali Mulu, if you may remember that particular time. Where were you? Were you also in politics? Or were you also having a vision and an ambition of being a politician?
This was around 2012. By then I had lost an election. You know,
you had lost an election?
Yeah, my first attempt
Still for Kitui Central?
was 2007.
2002?
Yeah, this was 2002.
Yeah, this was 2002.
No, and then I was actually 2002. I was working. I was working with a governance program called the Governance, Justice and Law Reform Program, which was in the midst of justice as one of the consultants.
Okay.
So I was just keenly following politics then.
And then you had no ambitions?
No, that time I didn't have any ambitions. Actually, the fire got lit up around 2006, just towards the end. Because I'd done a lot of community development work through one of the institutions I was working for. And I could see that time my MP was Honorable Ngilo. So I could see a few things not working as I expected. And by people since they had known I was a serious development work, started throwing a bit of challenges to me that you are doing a lot of work for us using donor money. Why don't you attempt to do work for us using CDF money? Because we know you have all it takes to do this job. So 2007, I gave it a first term. But all said and done, I think what you can see there, actually when you look at the history of this country in terms of politics, it's like it's just a force which changes. The monkeys remain the same.
The monkeys remain the same.
Because you analyze all that, you find the same faces coming to the scene. But for me, the Kibaki regime, everybody appreciates that Mzee did a lot of work for this country. And what surprises me most, and that's something which I've never understood, Mheshimiwa Uhuru Kenyatta was Kibaki's finance minister. Mheshimiwa Ruto was, I think, his agriculture minister. Raila Odinga was his energy minister. Mheshimiwa Kalonzo, was he the foreign minister that during Kibaki? I think
Home Affairs.
He was also one of the, because he was the first president, one of the terms after the Muda left, he was in Home Affairs. So, what surprises me is very few of them seem to have learned lessons from Kibaki's regime. You know, I always wonder how come they were not able to pick some of the basic things Kibaki used to do, which actually made this economy stable and even politically, things stabilized.
Yeah, but let's talk about just especially that campaigning period that was there, the Kibaki Tosha pronouncement.
No, I think Kibaki Tosha pronouncement was, as you said, Honorable Nyachai was very bitter with it. I can also tell you that even my party leader was not very happy with it. Because, you know, those were the front runners. At that time, actually, Kalonzo was also doing very well in terms of national rating.
Okay. But in terms of now picking up Kibaki and how he turned the economy around, we never know what Nyachai would have done. And
later.
The political state of hand dealt, Nyachai, a bit of blow.
Yes.
You can tell
maybe
us.
Was still in politics. I think there's more.
Maybe he was a strategist as well.
No, I was in Parliament.
You in Parliament,
and witnessed the whole drama. The whole thing actually was a culmination of, first of all, the first presidential two-term limit since the advent of multipartyism. This is the first time Moi, constitutionally, was not actually allowed to seek another term. That being the case, there were a lot of regrouping. You remember between 1997 and 2002, we have had the KANU NDB Corporation, we had the KANU NDB merger, which again didn't work. The new KANU, again, which got fragmented immediately after Uhuru was anointed as Moi's KANU successor. So that period between 1997 and 2002 saw the emergence of different factions within Fort Kenya, within KANU, within NDP, and different realignments. So even the Kibaki Tosha was not an accidental thing. There are so many people who actually expected Moi to anoint them. The late Saitoti, Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, Raila Amolo Odinga, and then suddenly Uhuru came, and many other people. It is because of that that saw a determined and well-focused and energized group that actually hell-bent on making sure that Moi's successor did not become the next president of the Republic of Kenya. And that is actually what led to the Kibaki. So the period shortly before Raila's Kibaki Tosha saw actually a lot of boardroom politics. And what happened between Nyachai and Raila, I'm sure somebody is going to document at a certain stage, how Raila eventually made that decision to support Kibaki. It's something that I'm sure historians will be interested actually to document. But that being said, there's something that we also need to learn from our leaders. Mzee Kenyatta was a resolute leader. He'll make a decision, focus on it, and implement. Mzee Moi was very energetic, just like Raila. Kibaki was a wise man, foresighted, and knowledgeable. And now Uhuru came with the usual fancy, very knowledgeable, but didn't seriously invoke the implementation of statecraft in his 10-year rule. And then finally we have His Excellency President Ruto, who has exhibited a mixture of all this. Very resolute, highly energetic, very knowledgeable, foresighted, and pragmatic. So with this now, and that's why the other day when I was here, I told you, NSF will be in a position to fund actually our economy in the next few years, and I'm glad that it's coming. I didn't know, I was not actually privy to that particular information. And that is exactly what the newly industrialized nation or the tiger nation in Asia actually did. So meaning, with NSSF, with the LAB fund, with the LAB trust, with the housing levy, with the fuel levy, with the rural, a time will come when we'll say, just like Erdogan did actually in Turkey between 2003 and 2013, a time will come where we will have collected so much that will be enough to offset our external debt and say, look, we can now do internal borrowing. Instead of going to the Bretton Woods institutions, IMF and World Bank, we'll just walk to NSF and say, you have this amount of savings, can we borrow from? It becomes government to government. Or government to a quasi-government. And this is one thing that really, and I'm glad that it came from the president. That's why I've been saying this. We need a bit of patience. So right now, we are seeing the application of all the policies that Kibaki applied.
Thank you.
Okay? And the applications of a manifestation of actually what all the former Kenyatta, Moi, Kibaki, Uhuru have applied. That mixture is what is going to give Kenya the final takeoff. But on the politics, I like what he said. We need to learn. Politics mutates. Raila of 2002 is not Raila of 2022 or 2023. Ruto of 2002 is not the Ruto of 2003. And Uhuru of 2002. So politics mutates depending on the dynamics of our politics. That's why one has to be a realist. Realist meaning what? You need also to conform the changing dynamics
and move with time.
Social, economic. Because even you, I'm sure in 2002, look at the social media effects. Was it there?
No.
Look at the imagined role of members of the Fourth Estate. Was it there?
No.
Look at the imagined role as members of our governance structure. These realities must also inform the changing personality of that particular individual. And I think this is one thing that we do not see in certain individuals. That is why we still want to behave the way we were behaving in 2002 and yet want to achieve a completely different result.
Thank you.
And that's why I think some of the individuals were floating and not appreciating the changing social fabric of the people of Kenya. And that's why I think they have been losing.
Thank you. Let's hear from Danson Mungatana, and then, of course, we'll wind up on that particular bit of museum by looking at some of the pictures that we have there of Jomo Kenyatta. This is a month also when we had, or we normally saw in the history of this country, losing top-notch leaders. In August, we had Mzee Jomo Kenyatta dying in August. We had also the Vice President Kijana Omalo dying in August. We had Masime Muliro. We had also Archbishop Muge. We had Father Kynes as well, if we may remember. Yes, but just hacking back to 2002, you can tell us where you are at. Were you still thinking about? I think by then you were in campus.
2002. I was, I think, one of the youngest members of parliament.
The youngest member. Okay.
And the late Caliph was minister elected in Northeastern, on the other side, and I was from Malindi all the way to Northeastern, Garissa and Mashabisiolo. It was only me and Honorable Caliph who were on NAC Rainbow. The rest of that area was Kano. They were exciting times, and sometimes I keep telling people, God really is in charge of this country, because at that time, the people have even written, the Honorable Simeon Nachai wrote about the Raila betrayal, how they have an agreement and then he goes and announces something else, but you've also seen him what he's saying, it is the people who said it's not me. Whatever it is, I think that God really is in charge of this country, because you have a solid agreement with your political partners. And then somehow within 1 hour, the whole thing changes and it becomes Kibaki Tosha and Kibaki becomes a president. So I keep telling people, we have nothing to worry about in this country. God is in charge. Whatever things we see here, we think that maybe we are playing chess with people and what, but really God is in charge. So, and we have had the favor of him giving us a stable nation and keeping us where we need to go. And I also strongly believe that the change from Uhuru to the new administration is also, people are going to see really huge changes. Ministers are going to earn their salaries, I'm telling you. People are going to work. PSS are going to earn their salaries. This president we have put there is not a joke. For the next 10 years, I don't know about the next one, but how it goes is that we have a relaxed person, we have a tough guy, then we will have a relaxed person. So I somehow think we will have a relaxed person. But I will tell you one thing, that God is really in charge. We may do the politics and talk and what and say this and that, but at the end, I think really God is in charge of our nation. So we were young then, and a lot of exciting things were happening. Change was coming, change was in the air. We had a president who was really pushing the buttons towards working hard. There was a mood change in the country. People really wanted to do something for the nation. I remember very exciting days where people would refuse. They would come out of the vehicles and tell the cops, you are not going to collect this illegal tax. People were arresting cops, and things were changing. The nation was moving towards a working nation. And I pray that even in this new administration, that mood will go back. Because there's no politician who is going to fix your personal finances. You must work. And that's the message I was carrying this weekend back home in all the meetings I was having. Nobody's going to, the government is not coming to dig your farm. The government is not going to raise your goats and cows. You must do it. Your MCA will help where he can. Your MP will help where he can. Your woman rep will help. Your senator will help. Your governor will help. But they will not come to dig your shamba. And I think if that attitude comes and people really go to get working, let the president and the governors set the mood and the policies, but we take the responsibility to produce. This country is going to go very far. That's my take.
Thank you. And of course, as we take a short break right now, I just want to run you by some of these pictures. If my director may just pick it up in full as we're taking the short break. This was, of course, the first president of the Republic of Kenya. That is Jomo Kenyatta. And in the month of August is when he passed on. As you can see, of course, him there with the military and the parade that he had as well. That was in 1978. And still in the month of August as well, we had also the death of Masinde Muliro. That is one of the Kenyan top-notch politicians that died in 1992. We take a short break. When we circle back, of course, the soapbox will be up next, just to give us a tone and flavor of the political happenings of last week that is setting up the stage also for today's